almost as much as I like playing it.
Yeah, well, it looks like I might have screwed up there. And I don't know if that all got put out there, but I'll go ahead and start all over again. I'm kind of out of it today. So, anyways, once again, this is episode number 45 right here on UORadio, and I am DJ Viceroy right here. We have several guests here with me today. We have Arjuna from Lake Superior. We have, Lord Chaos from Europa, I believe, and we have Radian. So if you didn't get that the first time, you got it the second time. So I just realized, hey, I didn't have a mic on. So, yep. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and have Arjuna introduce himself again. Go ahead, Arjuna.
Hi, Viceroy. This is Arjuna from Lake Superior. I've been a big fan of Ultima since about 1981, and a big fan of Ultima Online since the Second Age, and look forward to talking to you about it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it, and hopefully, we don't have any other problems come up. Hopefully I do everything right from here on forward. So with that said, Lord Chaos, go ahead and say hello to everybody. Tell us what shard you're from.
Thanks, Viceroy. Hey everybody, this is Lord Chaos, and yes, I am from the Europa shard, and a huge poster on Stratix, and I've been a big fan of Ultima since, I started with Ultima 3 and worked my way up until I finally saw, Ultima's coming online, and I joined it, and have played ever since.
So a big Ultima Online fan you are, or Ultima fan. Yeah, that's how I came across the game. I remember, reading about it in the magazine. I said, oh my god, there's an online world with many different people in it? I want that game. But, let's see, we have Radian. Radian, tell us what shard you're from.
Hi, Viceroy. I'm Radian from the Great Lakes Shard. I've been playing Ultima Online since October 1997 when a coworker of mine told me about this great new game she was playing and said I should check it out. And I've also been a fan of the Ultima series. I was late starting on it with Ultima 7, but have since gone back and played some of the older ones too. So, anyway, thank you.
Not a problem. Glad to have you, and let's see everybody else. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into discussions this afternoon. We're going to be talking about the latest, I guess, release. I don't know what you would call it. It's not an expansion. It's just basically a promotional release, and that would be known as the 9th anniversary of Ultima Online. So, as you very well know, if you've been playing this game and everything, and you do play this game, or you don't play this game, then you probably have seen the 9th anniversary box on store shelves over online, on Amazon.com and stuff like that. Probably mentioned a great deal as of late, within the last 2 weeks or the last month or so. So with that said, we're going to be talking about 9th anniversary and talking about our experiences with the 9th anniversary, talking about how many of us here have managed to get our hands on a copy of it. So with that said, I guess I'm going to start off by asking how many of you guys here have ordered the 9th anniversary. I mean, we got one person here who's from Europe, so he's going to be able to tell us his experiences with all that. And then, of course, we had the rest of us here from America and all that good stuff. So, yeah, we're gonna get basically both perspectives. I think the people over in Europe are having a little bit of problems, but let's go ahead and hear from Lord Chaos himself. Go ahead, Lord Chaos.
Thank you. Yeah, I live in Europe, and the 9th anniversary, just like most of the editions, are really, really hard to get in Europe. And the distribution is slow. The only good thing I can say about it is at least they expand the deadlines. But I really wish, with all the money we're paying for basically reshoot Pixel Crack, sorry to say it like that, but that's what it is, I really wish they would do just a little bit more to get it out to us. Or at least somehow give us some sort of online rebate, like you could say, well, you bought one game, then you can purchase the rest of them online directly from EA, or something like that. That would be very nice. I'm planning to order enough to get all the nice little Pixel Crack, because I'm such a damn addict. So, I don't know, I think I will need maybe 7 or 8 of them, so... Coney, I'm going to be paying you a pizza for a few days.
Yep. And I'm sure Draconi will be very happy to get those pizzas in the mail. All right, so yeah, there you have it from the folks over in Europe, one of them at least. And let's see, we have Arjuna next. Tell us about your purchasing experience of the 9th anniversary.
Well, I did order 10 boxes, and I did intentionally get enough to try to get one of each item. It doesn't necessarily mean I'll actually cash in the tokens. I know the last thing I bought a bunch of boxes and haven't cashed in the tokens yet, but I mostly like to support the people who make the game that I like to play, and I don't mind buying multiple boxes for my various accounts, as long as they keep trying their best and enjoy what they're doing. People like to complain about the stuff that we get. I know I complain my fair share, but when it comes down to it, I want the people who make my game to, be profitable enough to keep making it. So I bought 10 copies.
Wow, 10 copies. That's quite a bit. Must be a lot of accounts there and all that good stuff. Or are you thinking about putting all those tokens on one account? Let me ask you about that, Arjuna.
Well, I do actually cash them all on one character, and then just kind of spread out tokens to my different characters and accounts as I feel they need them. So I ordered from Amazon. I haven't gotten it yet. I should get it in a day or two. Yeah, I mean, I don't actually care which account cashes it in. If it's something that's useful, all 24 of my characters that I play all the time, I just pick the one that can best use an item, or the house that can best use it, or whatever it's going to be.
Right. Well, each to their own. Yeah, Oh, I'm just reading some of these Ice Cube messages. Bad people, bad. Yes, bad. Let's see, Radian. Let's go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I ordered 6 boxes myself and got them through ebgames.com, and have already gotten them and put in a couple of the codes already. I have to say that some of the stuff that they've got in there, like the cherry blossom trees and things like that, I've really enjoyed having. But so far as keeping Ultima Online profitable, I think they've got better ways they could do that than selling these annual anniversary boxes to people that, I mean, realistically, I think the shelf presence excuse for these is pretty limited. Most of them are being bought by existing customers. And, if there was a little more content to it other than things that in my opinion, should be in the crafting system, or, gardening per se, or something like that, where you could actually get these in-game, I think that it'd be better off than selling things on or through these box sets. But, that said, clearly I bought 6 of them, just like, many other people are probably buying 1 or 2 at least, and so, they got me with the Pixel Crack too, so what can I say?
Okay, with that said and everything. Okay. Let me just say, with that said and everything, what would you say, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted by an ICQ message. With that said, what would you say is one of your most favorite items that you saw that was most appealing? What made you say, ooh, I want to get that? What made you say that to yourself? Say, that's got me sold. What was it within the 9th anniversary collection that really sold you on going out and buy it? Can I go down the list here and basically ask each and every one of you which is the most, what item in that collection either sold you on buying it, or what item, or what's your favorite item in the collection? Arjuna, go ahead.
Well, frankly, I would say none of the items in the current selection actually sold me on buying a box just for those. Yeah, I want to have one of everything just because I like to have one of everything. But of the choices, the ones that say that you can get any previous item was more enticing to me, because maybe I gave away some leggings of Embers from before, or maybe I don't have some of the older ones. So I prefer items that are useful. and it definitely is not pixel crack that gets me to buy 10 copies of the game. It's mostly loyalty and things that actually work on a character and make my character a little bit better.
Well, what I liked about it was the trees and stuff. That's what really got my interest. It's like, oh, now there's trees. Something which you didn't have before whenever customizing your house. So, with that said, Lord Chaos, let's hear from you. What kind of things really sold you?
Well, what?
Say that again?
I think we had a little lag spike there. What got me hooked on it was the ocean.
Really? Wow.
Well, yeah, I'm kidding a bit, but actually, yeah, just having him back made me happy and wanting to buy a lot of 9th anniversary. But yeah, otherwise it's a lot of the trees and the hanging swords and things like that. A lot of the decorative items, and like Juna said, it's also really nice to see some of the old anniversary items that I may have missed or not have so many of redone, so I could get some of them again if I need it on new characters or don't have enough or something. So yeah, that's what got me hooked: the decorative, the old item, and the ocean.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I guess that's a good reason to go out and purchase it. I'm not sure if that would be my reason to go out and purchase one, but Radian, let's hear from you. What made you want to go out and buy it?
For me, it was mostly the trees and the fountains and the wall torches. Fortunately, I still have, or maybe it's unfortunately, I still have tokens lying around from the last anniversary, so it's really all of the new stuff that wasn't available. But I think top on the list would have been the trees.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. The trees and the ladder were probably the main two items that really caught my interest. All right, so with that said, we're going to go ahead and we are actually going to move over to the next item over here on the list. We're going to talk about the Shard of the Dead. What would you say, what were your experiences with the Shard of the Dead? Did you guys play it? Did you like it or not? Gina?
I read about it, but I'm not a big fan of playing Test Center. It's neat that the designers did a test like where you have people try to turn each other into vampires, and I like some of the ideas that they did, but they are not things that have me playing Ultima Online, so I wasn't actually inclined to go try that.
Interesting. Radian, did you play the Shard of the Dead? Go ahead.
Honestly, with all of the other stuff that they've got going on the production shards, like the trick-or-treating, the Grim Reaper, all of the cool statues and Twilight Lanterns and things like that, I haven't had a chance to check out the Shard of the Dead. I thought it was real nice that rather than, having to go over to Test Center like you have in previous years just to get a holiday celebration, that there was actually something live on the production shard. So, honestly, I haven't seen it and probably won't before it's gone, so.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I'm glad that you pointed that out. And Lord Chaos, did you play on the Shard of Dead? If so, what was your experience like?
Yeah, I did play on it for a little while. I went on there to see how it was, and I started in Scare Bray and got attacked by a horde of brain-eating zombies and got turned into a brain-eating zombie myself, kind of like my postings, but, so that was great fun.
Yeah, I bet.
But I like it that they use this to test it out and really try some new systems that they may be able to apply to the game later. I never got to try out that Vampire War and all that. I got too busy trying to go to the event on the real server, which just basically turned into it turned from fun to less fun, sadly.
Yeah. I don't know. For me personally, it was it just didn't do it quite for me. I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't as fun as it could have been, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, it was a little bit different than last year, because last year I don't think there was any of this vampire stuff or whatever. So it is a little bit different than last year, but I mean, I'm still wanting something like the, the Abyss, shard, wherever you could play a dragon, go around as a dragon and stuff like that, and actually have the attributes of a dragon or a Lich Lord or something like that, where, stuff like that. That's what I kind of want to do. I mean, I don't know if you guys kind of share the same feeling about that, but if you're going to give me like a specially themed shard, let's start bringing back some of the old themes, like Santa's Sleigh, Abyss shard around Halloween, stuff like that. Arjuna, let's hear from you.
First, I did want to agree with Radiant and Lord Chaos that the production shard trick-or-treating was actually very clever, and I loved being able to walk around with a beggar saying trick-or-treat, and maybe sometimes getting a chance of a spell-channeling lantern or something like that. With regard to being able to play monsters, it's not the Abyss level that you're talking about, but they do have a talisman that lets you turn into a Reptilon or something like that you get a little bit of breath weapon, and you get to actually breathe a few damage from fireball and walk around like a monster on production shards. And, it's fun as a gimmick. It's not fun to play all the time like that, but I like being able to do that, and I like that polymorph is permanent till you recast it, so you can fly around like a demon and things like that. So they do have a few changes that I kind of like along those lines.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that you could do that in polymorph and go pretty much around as an orc or something like that, and actually roleplay, and it'd be pretty much permanent. I like that. I didn't even know that it was permanent now, to be honest with you. But you learn something new every day. I don't play around with magical spells too much. I'm afraid I might accidentally cast Armageddon. But let's see. I don't want to do that. I don't want to bring the world to its knees. But sometimes that does kind of entertain me just thinking about it. But Lord Chaos, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I would say that I can see where you're coming from, definitely, of wanting to see some more fun and some old fun brought back. Maybe they can do that at other times. I'm glad they're really testing out some systems, and maybe they could apply those. I can see those polymorph gates. They could be used in role-playing situations, like you have orcs versus humans or something, or into actual monsters that may not get the full stats, but at least the appearance. That could be great fun, and the whole Vampire War seemed to be able to bring a lot to the production shots, and I like them to use the events to draw in more people to test it out. So that's good fun. I want to touch just real quickly on what Arjuna said about the real life event. I love the trick-or-treating. It was a great thing, the thing they did, though they put a little bit too much on the begging thing. That kind of made me a little upset, because now I have to sit. I've been sitting every day training a damn beggar just so I can get the new trick-or-treat things. I wish they kind of give it a little bit more warning for that, because I can't get to GM begging in the short period of time this event lost.
Well, I want to kind of touch on that a little bit, Lord Chaos, because I don't know if you knew this or not, but really, all you need is 20 begging, and most human characters, new characters that is, that have begging skill, typically start out with that. So I don't think by having GM begging that's going to help you all that much or at all. I don't know if you was aware of that. Lord Chaos?
Well, I've heard on the forum to say that the 20 begging you get basically for human is not enough, and you don't get any from it.
Oh, interesting. Maybe I read wrong. I don't know. Let's see. And here's something that you mentioned and everything. Going around and saying trick or treat and stuff like that. I don't know about you guys, but I've been seeing a lot of posts over there on the forums about people getting guard whacked by the evil one or your evil twin that would pop up and stuff like that. I haven't heard any of you guys mention any of that. Have you had that happen to you by any chance? And if so, I mean, what were your thoughts on that? I mean, have you seen anybody get guard whacked by their own evil twin, or do you know how that was done, or what? Lord Chaos, let's hear from you.
I haven't experienced it myself. Basically, apparently what happens is that another person's evil twin will attack you, and you initiate combat or have reflect damage items on you, and it apparently can count like you are attacking an NPC, which can get you god whacked. I believe they got that fixed, though, which was very nice that they did that. I really can't fault them for that, because that's such an extreme case. I don't think they've really thought of it, that could happen that way. So I'm letting them off the hook on that, because I thought everything in the trick or treat except the begging was a little hard. Everything else is really awesome about it. It's good fun. Even the getting killed part, was actually fun, and it gave me a shock the first time it happened. Like, oh my god, and I died on my main.
Right. Yeah. And here's my whole thing. For example, if you look back at the old days of Ultima Online and everything, you always had like Santa Claus, at the banks and stuff like that, giving out, fruit cakes and stuff like that. Coals if you were bad and stuff like that. Just seeing Santa Claus around the West Britain Bank and stuff like that, around in Britain. That was something that you used to see back in the old days, and now they don't have no longer no Santa Claus NPCs or anything like that, which I think is a shame. It would be nice if they were to perhaps bring that back and start, having Santa Claus to, celebrate the, whatever holiday season we're in. But then again, I guess I could understand why they wouldn't have it, being that the game is an international game and, not everybody observes Christmas. So, I mean, it really, I guess that's probably why they did away with it for good. But, if they were to bring back that, I think that would be kind of awesome. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that. But, Radian, let's hear from you.
I was going to say that the whole begging skill thing was probably a nice surprise for anyone who's actually taken the time to build up their begging skill, because as is the case with many of the sideline skills, it's a pretty useless skill except for walking around and getting stuff off of nobles and things like that. So it was probably a nice treat for them as well. I have heard that it's easier to get some of the special items the higher your begging is. You get a chance even with just 0.1, but obviously 0.1 compared to 100, you get a much better chance at 100. As far as some of the bugs with the trick-or-treating, I was one of the people that managed to get killed by somebody else's evil twin. I just happened to be walking by and stopped to take a look at the fight, and I guess maybe the other person got guard whacked or something. He went from nearly full health to dead instantly, and then all of a sudden his evil twin aggroed on me, and I went over to Stratix and let people know about that, and was severely chastised, but we'll leave that for another conversation. I'd say that overall it's been really fun to be running around doing some of this stuff, and hopefully with some of the other holidays, maybe we'll see a return of Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day, and even maybe some other foreign holidays, maybe some Japanese holidays celebrated in Tokuno and things like that. It would be a really great way to go. So I've also heard people say that they wish that they were celebrating more UO or Ultima-based holidays, and certainly that would be a lot of fun too. So hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, and if they couldn't for whatever reason celebrate, real life holidays, I can understand that, because like I said, not everybody's going to observe those holidays. However, like you said, if they were to observe Ultima holidays and stuff like that, like the defeat of Modane and stuff like that, that would be awesome. I think that would. Let's see. I think Arjuna was next, so go ahead, Arjuna.
Yeah, with regard to the evil twins, one of the things that I most loved about what they did is truly match the person party with him, and he had a real really powerful warrior with all 120s and Bushido and tons of great weapons and everything, and he kept dying to his evil twin. And when I was begging, I was using someone with no, like a majory and no inti-val and no wrestle, and my evil twin couldn't kill me. I had no skills, and it was doing like 3 damage on me, and it was so they seem to scale it on how tough your character is, and that was something that I really liked seeing.
Right. Lord Chaos, let's go ahead and hear from you.
Well, I don't know if it's okay, but I'd like to move on to the other part of the event, the whole undead invasion thing, because that was really great fun too. But they really overdid the whole balance thing, where they tried to make the undead so much harder, and heck, I can't kill the darn things. I've tried everything, and either there are too many people there that kill them too fast, because there are a whole bunch of people, or there's very few people there, and then I get whacked by the bunch of Bone Magi and Lich Lords with super skills. So I think they kind of blew it a bit on that and made it way too hard. At least they fixed the Reaper, that was good, but nowadays I don't get to see the Reaper because I don't go to the spawns anymore. I really would like to get a lantern. So if any of you UO developers out there, bad devs, you should not have done that.
Right. Gina, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Lord Chaos that Reaper was already easily tough enough already, and they scaled it for people and shards maybe who play on prime time with 15, 20, 25 people on the screen fighting, but I played it at the first time 4 in the morning, and I figured, hey, let me go try some of those undead and get one of those lanterns. And I had what I thought was a pretty strong character, and I was getting killed over and over, and so then I went and got my, best warrior who can fight, Paragon Succubi and 4 of those Revenant Lions at one time. And that Reaper, I could not solo the Reaper. It was very strong, and for them to think that was not strong enough, I don't understand that.
Yeah, see, what I really liked, and one of the new systems that I'm seeing worked on and everything over on the test shard and everything, was that whenever you kill a creature or something, it gets harder and harder and harder. So, for example, if it was too easy for you to kill, it would get progressively stronger over time. So, the more often you killed it, the more stronger it got. So, and then it really eventually became either too strong, then it would simply level itself out to where it was still possible to kill it. But, that's something I thought was really unique. I'm kind of wondering whether or not that's going to be something we see in the production shard later on in the future. Go ahead, Radiant.
I was just going to say that I honestly haven't fought with the Reaper since they upgraded it, so I don't know what the difference is between the before and after. But I did hear that they had changed just the regular red undead spawn that happened before the Reaper, so that it was more challenging, and that was probably a good thing, because I remember the first few times I went out, I went to Feluca, to a couple of the graveyards there, which were completely deserted, and it was just me and a couple of energy vortexes were just cutting through it like a knife through butter. No challenge to it at all, and that was probably way too easy. But I honestly don't know how bad the Reapers got, and I know prior to the update to them, they were cut through pretty quickly with a couple of tamers and people dropping vortexes all around and things like that. But certainly there's probably a level of balance they need to strike on them, and I don't know whether they've overdone it or not in this case.
All right. And Lord Chaos, go ahead.
You were talking about the progressively stronger spawn. That was actually what they did with the undead spawn. The problem with it is that you have a lot of people very, very strong players that port around to the spawn all the time and kill them, and it becomes extremely strong. And so that pushes away all the regular players because they're very, very powerful, strongly geared players will be able to take them on, and nobody else will because you get killed. I mean, okay, I'm not super, I do have an elder Bushido archer with lowest resist is 62, highest is 75, and other good stats on it, and mana regen enough so that I can use all my skills almost constantly. But it takes me a long time to even kill one of those undeads. I mean, they have thousands of hit points, and they hit me for insane amount of damage, and then I get blood oathed and God knows what, and then I die and all that. It's just not fun. I mean, so they should have just upped and made them weaker from what they are now, and then make them a little bit of a challenge up around the level of the normal mobs, and then just spawn them more often, get everybody a chance to have some fun and get it, and so we don't have all this, buy this lantern for 10 million gold.
Right. Well, I don't know if I want to see, and here's the thing, this is where I get a little bit concerned. Like today I saw a post over on Stratix, asking with LaRoche and asking basically whether or not, what kind of, stats are your favorite stats to have on a weapon, or what's your favorite item properties. Yeah, that's the question he asked, and I'm kind of wondering, don't tell me they're going to start, using his item properties to really make some new items and stuff, like, oh, well, by the way, here's some new items. And everybody just go, yay, and that's why I hate item properties. It's like this, you're going to give me a new item, slap some properties on it that everybody pretty much likes, and then you're going to call it a new item, and that's somehow supposed to make me happy? No. Lord Chaos.
I kind of dropped the ball on that one. Any of you other guys have anything to say? Because I kind of lost focus here.
Yeah, and just going back on and kind of touching on what I said, I mean, do you guys want to see a system where they basically say, create this new weapon or this new item for, say, for example, UOKR, say, oh, you can now get this, unique artifact, let's see, Viceroy's Sword or something like that, and it's got this, insane property, this favorite, item property or whatever. I mean, I would imagine that's why he would be asking for, what's your favorite item properties, because I'm sure he's going to take that feedback and probably create something new out of it and say, hey, look what I created. And everybody, of course, more than likely, all the trammies out there, they'll cheer and say, yay, good job, LaRoche. You created this new artifact, and now everybody wants to go for it and everything. But my point is where do we draw a line on the number of artifacts in the game? I mean, it's like they keep inventing all these new artifacts, and somehow we're supposed to be impressed or excited about it. It does nothing for me. I mean, and it's going to get to the point where artifacts is going to trump. For example, if they ever do get crafting fixed, crafting is still going to be ruined because of the fact that everybody's going to have an artifact, so, I mean, what do you do then? So, I mean, it's like we're going to keep introducing new artifacts and stuff like that, and at the same time, really hamper whatever, life is left in crafting. So, I mean, are we going to give up crafting like we did on thieves and other professions? I mean, that's kind of things I'm kind of worried about, with some of these developers, ideals. And it's sometimes I don't think they put much consideration as to what the consequences of their actions might be. And really, I think at the end of the day, what I would like to see is the developers to take more responsibility and think about their actions. What kind of consequences is their actions going to have on the future of the game? Is it going to be good or bad? I mean, I don't think they think that far ahead. I think they think about what's going to impress the players right now rather than long term or whatever. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. Does that somehow, not worry you sometimes or make you wonder? Because, I mean, we got UOKR on the horizons, and I'm sure they're going to introduce a bunch of new stuff, because rumor has it that there's going to be a new race, that there's going to be new craftable items, which, in my opinion, is not going to do any good, especially with crafting ruined, and not really a viable profession unless you want to just craft some new stuff just for the heck of it, just for looks and, giggles and everything. Well, then that's going to be right up your alley. But other than that, crafting is going to have no more meaning than it does now. So, I mean, let's talk about that a little bit, and I will start off with Radian. Go ahead.
So far as the range of artifacts that are currently in the game and the properties being put on them and everything, it's sort of a never-ending cycle, because without new items being introduced into the game, you're eventually going to get to the point where a lot of players have just about everything there is to have, and then really there's no reason to go out and hunt except for the challenge, and a lot of people will tell you that the challenge isn't all that challenging currently. So I don't really see the items equally as changed, and I'm not sure I see that on the horizon. So really we're sort of more to the point where artifacts will probably become more specialized, maybe giving you more options for what you can do with them, but I really don't see them going away. And you bring up an interesting point about artifacts versus crafting. The problem with crafting, above and beyond the fact that there's a limit of items that can be created, is that there really is no good solution to fixing crafting. The reason for that is because just about everybody in the game already has an alternate character that does all of their crafting for them. The game's been around for 9 years now. I'd say the number of people without an alternate who does crafting for them is probably very few. And so even if they did something really neat where they introduced a whole bunch of new recipes and hard-to-gain items, which they did to an extent with Mondane's Legacy, I think that doesn't really overall help the crafting situation, because you can gather that stuff, take them home, hand it all over to your alternate, and they can whip up whatever it is that you're looking for. So to me, the problem with crafting isn't necessarily ever going to balance with artifacts unless they do something to majorly overhaul the necessity to have other players craft things for you. And right now that necessity really isn't there.
Exactly, and that's where I get to, because, I mean, let's just say if they ever have any real serious plans to ever address crafting, where they're throwing out any potential plans or any potential possibilities of salvaging crafting to where it's a viable profession again, to where, people will actually go out and craft stuff and start selling it again. But, now, given the fact that, that all these artifacts are coming out, and new artifacts, and and like you said, if they don't come out with new artifacts, then people are going to say, well, there's nothing left for me to do. There's nothing really interesting. There's nothing left for me to go after. And my question is, where do we draw the line and say, hey, we need to fix crafting. We need to, think ahead about what we do today is going to affect, what happens, later down the road. Because, I mean, right now, you don't have, if you look at tailors, there's not even really anybody that crafts much anymore, or let alone sell their wares when it comes to crafting. And that has a lot to do with items not breaking and stuff like that. And so let's go ahead. Lord Chaos. Well, Arjuna.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear. Oh, you said Lord Chaos.
Yeah, go ahead, Arjuna.
Hi. Well, first, with regard to Lorosian's questionnaire of what are the 5 favorite and least favorite item properties, I think he had no choice but to ask that. And the reason is that they're probably sitting there having meetings all the time, I imagine, on balance. And the thing is, it's still a game. And what is fun is as important as what is balanced. So, they might be, I'm sure the whole dev team has their opinions of what's good and bad, and they probably sit there, arguing about, we need to take this away or change this. But they also need to keep in mind what makes the game for people. Like, for example, you might not like lower reagent costs, and I know other people don't. For me, I love it. It makes a mage fun to play. So to ask a question about what is the stuff you really like is, again, what's to balance without what's fun is to cause as much damage as to not balance. Then with regard to crafting, what Age of Shadows did wrong is they made every existing item in the game completely useless. And if they're going to do an overhaul, the overhaul has to learn from that mistake and not make every existing item useless again. They've got to have, let's say that they say these properties trump skill, and we need to be able to make skill more useful, or skill without items more useful. I'm all in agreement with that, but at the same time, the people who have spent 3 years and tons of effort farming items or crafting items or whatever, you can't take that away, because that's to say that everything that you've done for the last 3 years is gone. In my opinion, crafting has to be fixed by making it better, by making it easier to craft better items. I play my crafters as much as probably anybody in the game. I give out at least 10 full suits of leather armor to beginning characters a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. I sit there, I use my smith, I use my tailor, I make things for people. I always wish I could make better stuff. There isn't a day that goes by that I'm crafting and I say, I wish I could make better stuff. And so that's what they need to do. They need to make it easier to make better stuff. They need to make it so that you don't have to be a carpenter to make something as good as Darkwood armor. And they have to make it so that, someone doesn't have to be 120 skilled to make something useful. Power scrolls should be optional. Anyway, it's a long soapbox, but I definitely have.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we're having some little technical difficulties. We're getting some little lag spikes, and that would be on my end. I don't know why. But, my whole thing is that what I see at the end of the day is EA, basically the developers, debating between whether or not to give convenience to the players or implement a system of supply and demand. So, I think at the end of the day, the developers are choosing to go with a system of convenience over supply and demand. And personally, I think that is detrimental to any system, economy, or whatever else you have, or have you, is because it just doesn't simply work that way. It's just not logical, to simply take a supply and demand system and replace it with something that's, convenient. Like, for example, the LRC, lower reagent cost. That's not a good idea, because that just removes the supply and demand. Same thing with artifacts. It pretty much removes the supply and demand, because no longer do people need crafted weapons and everything, or crafty armor, because they can simply go out and farm this stuff off of monsters and old properties, or whatever you want to call it, the durability. Lord Chaos, let's hear from you.
Thank you. I will never agree with you on the lower reagent cost. Never, ever, ever. But that's okay. As for the whole crafting situation, I agree with Arjuna that they need to make it stronger overall, and they need to move away from the artifact system. They had some really good ideas with the whole peerless thing in UOML that allowed you to craft really great items, but it became a little too limited to get them because you had to do specific tier lists to get specific items, which made it a big hassle for anybody who was not part of it. I would rather see more of maybe a rating point system where you can buy from gaining rating points from doing tier lists, Doom, or whatever, or if some new areas introduced, and you can use those to buy special crafting parts, which you then use with a lot of regular parts, and then you craft very special armors and weapons, and you will be able to craft more of them and have better control over the properties, and that way you can be competitive with artifacts, not really in sheer power maybe, but in flexibility, that you can say, well, I really want something that does such and such, and you can make it as a crafter. That'll make you very viable and make it so that people come to you and say, well, I really need a suit, a weapon for an event that's going on that's really great. Well, we'll craft something like that. You make it. That would be a lot better instead of introducing new artifacts. In fact, I wouldn't like to see any more artifacts. I would like to see artifacts being solely from crafting. Artifacts should be something that really good crafters either go down to GM, craft. I think I do want to see that and finally get there. That should be rewarding in and of itself. But yeah, maybe GM crafting crafts a lower success rate. They need to have to crafting. As it is now, there's just too many failures on everything. It's like you just what you craft is bad, not very useful most of the time, and you have a lot of chance of failure on everything. So at least the talismans kind of helped on that, but I would like to see them move totally away from artifacts to a kind of point-buy system, new items that you use to craft better items that are customizable to almost to the level of artifacts. I think that would revive crafting very much, and maybe even a little bit to the community crafter, because people would want to buy very specialized suits and weapons for specific circumstances.
Yeah, like if I want to be ice fiends, I want weapons that can kill ice fiends. But let's see. Go ahead, Radian. Let's hear from Radian. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that I think so far as crafting goes, the only real way to sort of combat the fact that everybody, well, not everybody, but most people tend to have a crafter on their account already, would be to sort of combat that by giving specializations. I think a lot of World of Warcraft, and I wouldn't suggest just taking the system and transplanting it over and slapping it onto UO, because they're clearly not the same game. But the idea of, maybe having a specialization between cloth and leatherworking, maybe somebody would specialize in the crafting of furniture over the crafting of, wooden staves or something like that, or tinkers, traps versus just useful items like candelabras and things like that. I don't think that making the attempt to craft something easier is the right way to go, because then you're just sort of adding on to the problem that everybody can already craft everything as it is. So I'd say rather than moving to a point where things get easier to craft, I think what you need to do is make it so that better things can be crafted so that it's more worth the time to put into the system. Because if you just make it so that everybody can go out and gather these reagents and everything is very easy to craft, you're going to run into the same problem that we have today, where anybody can throw it onto a vendor and sell it to somebody else, and you're done with it. So I think really it becomes more in diversifying the system and allowing for, like I said, my favorite idea would be to add specializations, just so that, unless somebody's got four or five, certainly up to them, the same stuff being created by the same people, and maybe the market would open up a little bit. And of course, my favorite thing to reinvigorate crafting would be to completely and totally do away with the vendor system, player-run vendors, because I still think that's what killed crafting the most. It used to be that you would go to, a local smithy or a maid's shop or whatever, and you'd find people standing there selling their wares, and so people that spent time in the game playing as a crafter were actually rewarded for being a crafter just because they were there doing it, and people would know where to find them. These days, if you want something crafted, you just go take a trip to Luna and run around and pick up whatever you need, and there's really no player interaction in it. So I think there are ways that crafting can be revitalized, but I honestly don't think making it easier will help any.
Yeah. My point at the end of the day is, what good is adding new craftable items with an expansion like UOKR? This is hypothetical now, because I don't know whether or not for certain. Rumor has it, though, based on OneUp.com, I've read an article over there, and it says that UOKR supposedly is going to have new player race, crafting and stuff. And my point is, what good is introducing new craftables going to do when nobody uses crafting? I mean, that's what I'm getting at the end of the day. And I'm like, and that's somehow it's supposed to get me to go out and want to buy this. I don't know. It just doesn't make much sense to me. Also, I don't like how, the elves can wear, elven only and stuff like that. Elves I believe they can wear both human and elven stuff. And, whereas humans, they can only wear human stuff, and they can't wear elven stuff, and it's kind of weird. So I don't quite understand that aspect. I mean, there's just so many inconsistencies with each expansion and stuff like that in which they introduce. It's like, dude, what were you thinking? It's just like, let's just say, for example, here's another rumor. Another rumor is there's a lot of speculation on U-Haul that the next playable race is going to be dwarves. But my whole thing is, why in the hell would you introduce dwarves when you have other more well-known races in the game of Ultima Online, such as gargoyles, orcs, in which people actually roleplay? I mean, I've actually seen people roleplay orcs and stuff, putting on orc masks and stuff like that. Why would you not introduce orcs or gargoyles or something of that nature as a playable race? I mean, we already have the Gargoyle City in Ishmael, so why would you even think about dwarves, ahead of that? That's the biggest problem I had with the introduction of UOML. It's like, why? At the end of the day, why? Lord Chaos, let's hear from you.
Well, you gotta remember that this is just hearsay. We don't know what's going to be in Beat Dwarves and what's going to be. But I'm going to just say I play another game besides it, which is Lineage 2, and they actually have many of the systems that you described, Radiant. And I must say, coming from actually having played in a game where crafting is like that, and you do have player-run shops, outright player-run shops, it is not a good idea for UO. It looks great on paper, but it's not going to work for real very well. Like I said, making crafting in a sense easier, but making a lot more specialization in armors and weapons is, I believe, going to revitalize it a lot more. You may say that, well, you're going to pump it out yourself. Well, yes, that's the point. That's what you do in this game. You do really make your characters, and you go out and do things because you built your character and you can make it. Crafting is not about having just fun because someone else is crafting it for you. It's also because you can have fun crafting it yourself. There's a lot of good things about UO that you can be self-sufficient. You can do things for yourself. That's one of the really cool things I liked about UO, and that should really remain and well, I need certain suits, I need certain things. I'm going up against Paragon Succubus, I need such and such suits, which is great again. Then I have a greater chance of making it with my crafter. Or maybe I don't know how, so I go out and I buy it. But because it's so much easier, it doesn't cost me 10 million to get the suit. It might cost me a lot less, and then I can go off and have fun right away instead of running around all the time, getting a headache, trying to add up all the little items, and it only coming off a faceless vendor. As for the last point about community crafting, maybe, just maybe, with introducing the system I said earlier, you could make it so you get a certain bonus, like each town has a virtue. Well, maybe each virtue also represent a certain amount of properties as well. So the smithies in each town gives those properties. So let's say you go to Britain, well, that gives a certain profit bonus to certain kind of properties you want to create. That would mean the smith would want to go there. They would also have a reason to go there, and once they're there, they'll start socializing with others. And other people would start gathering there, they would hackle their wares, they would say, oh, I do need a higher hit chance increase, or lower attack, or any kind of, or a specialized suit in resistance against ice, or something like that. Then when you go there and you say, well, I know that in this town crafters would most likely be crafting that because they have the bonus there. You would be promoting community play like that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Very good point, and that's a pretty good proposal you put there. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with it, because, we could probably listen to 101 proposals today, and at the end of the day, nobody's going to agree with either proposal. So, that's the hard part. Nobody's really going to agree with any proposal. But, the thing is, the thing I'm really getting at is what good is crafting right now? It's not, to my knowledge. There's no use for crafting. So, I'm just being hypothetical. Let's say with UOKR, they introduced dwarves. How will you feel about dwarves? And how would you feel about crafting new craftable items being introduced with UOKR? Is that going to impress you? Or is that going to kind of disgust you that they would introduce a system in which, new craftables for a system that is broken? That is what I'm getting at. I'm kind of wanting to hear your thoughts on this. Would you be, thrilled about dwarves as opposed to orcs or gargoyles? Or, and would you be thrilled about the introduction of new craftables for a new player race when the profession itself is broken? So I'm kind of wanting to hear about that aspect, Do you think that before they go introducing new craftables that they probably need to fix crafting? The issues surrounding crafting as to make it more viable, make people want to go out and craft, make people want to buy and sell craftable goods, as opposed to go out and farm it from, NPCs and, monsters and all that other good stuff. Arjuna, let's hear from you.
Well, with regard to everyone having a crafter, I think it's as legitimate a play style as being a warrior or a mage, and everybody who wants to be a crafter should be rewarded with the fun of having them. With regard to, let's say they introduce something like dwarf, I think also most people, I know I do, I like to play characters that I can identify with. So I might personally like to play characters that are tall and big. Whereas I imagine if I was 100 pounds lighter and a foot and a half shorter in real life, like I've seen elves in 3D, for example, and they look like kids to me. So I don't identify with that, but I identify with big characters, and I imagine other people can. So it's a matter of identity also for what people can enjoy playing. With regard to new kinds of craftables, I think that the main thing is that new craftables, besides being good enough to be useful, need to be something that people with crafting skills or resource gathering skills can get the ingredients. Now, I heard one idea where someone said, well, what if peerless reagents could come from treasure chests? Well, I kind of like that, because treasure chests are scalable in difficulty, so that you could, in theory, have people do level 1 treasure chests, get fewer peerless reagents or ingredients, but not the difficulty of having to fight red deaths and things that kill you on sight. And likewise, to have things that your lumberjack or your miner or your fisher person can get in order to craft the better items, then I think it would be something done correctly. The problem is that you have to have guilds of strong PVMers to get the ingredients to craft the good stuff, and that defeats the purpose of having a crafter, because then the expense is on the player versus monster part rather than on the crafting part. But that's my opinion.
Well, here's what really scares me about at the end of the day. I see a system that is fundamentally flawed, such as crafting. I see a system with regards to item insurance, LRC, just a bunch of systems that really screw up a lot of other aspects of the game. I see thieves that are screwed up by, by item insurance. I see crafting that's screwed up by, artifacts. And, I can go on and on and on. But the thing is when are we, and just look at PvP. That's screwed up in a lot of ways, because it's not balanced for a lot of people, because a lot of people, and here was this PvP pass that was supposed to balance it all out, and then they scrapped that away, and you ain't heard another thing about it since then. My question is if there's not a solution, because obviously they don't have a solution for PvP, because they was going to do that PvP pass a long time ago, which they just dropped and forgot about, and we ain't heard another word about it. And so my whole thing is, and that's where I start getting worried as a player of the game, when they start dropping systems like thieves and just totally casting them off, dropping PvPers and just totally casting them off for exchange in favor of working on systems that are trammy related, like for the Trammel player. I'm not trying to be biased here or anything. I'm just trying to state facts, because I do play in Trammel. I don't play in Feluca. For anybody that said, well, you must be a Felucan if you're going to call us a trammy. Well, I'm a trammy, to some extent. But at the same time, I used to be a Felucan, so I'm kind of more of a moderate, you might say. But that really starts to scare me when I don't see any solutions on how, by the developers on how to address these problems. And we probably won't see any solutions anytime in the near future, because every time, they start coming up with solutions, it's always got a flaw in it or something that wasn't taken into consideration, and they have to scrap the whole idea, just like with the whole PvP pass. So I'm kind of, does that not concern you guys as players? That, crafting may not ever get fixed? That, that thieves may not ever become a viable play style? Because it's going to eventually, over time, it's just like people really didn't pay any, real great, concern about, how much gold was in the game until, prices started coming up to about 40 million for artifacts and stuff like that. And then people say, oh my God, things are too expensive. Why? It's like this. People gripe about this stuff day in, day out, and then it gets ignored for so long till it becomes such a big problem. Then everybody says, well, why are we having this problem today? So, I don't quite understand the player base when the player base says, no, we don't want nothing that will tax us or nothing that would remove this from our game. But at the same time, I can't understand why, the game's so screwed up the way it is. And yet at the same time I see, a system or things being introduced that totally ignore the problems of the game that created the problem in the first place. So, that's where I as a player become concerned. Radiant, let's hear from you.
Well, you bring up a lot of interesting points. I guess the real problem is, for instance, taking thieves, for example. It wasn't item insurance that killed them, it was Trammel that killed them. thieving, just like player versus player, really involves non-consensual actions between players, and the things that they've come up with to help improve thieving really haven't done a lot of good on that front. Running around stealing artifacts from dungeons in Doom and the couple of places in Tokuno that you can do it as well. There are definitely a lot of skills in the game that are pretty useless. They took, item identification is useless as our identification wands, because now all of your properties are right there in front of you, and there's absolutely no guess or surprise to what it is you just picked up. And maybe the solution to making that useful again is to get rid of showing everything, but then you will end up with the problem of making the statistics on the items even worse, because now not only do you have to add up all the items, but you have to get them identified first. So I don't know if that's a good solution either. I don't know. Things like with the solutions to player versus player combat, the PvP pass that they up and dropped. I don't think they're ignoring the problem.
They just don't got a solution, right?
Like, well, right, and I'm thinking, recently they were talking about all of the proficiencies. The problem with a lot of the solutions that they're coming up with is that, I think after the Age of Shadows, they're really sort of gun-shy on major changes. And honestly, given the way that the Age of Shadows went over, I really sort of can't blame them from that aspect, because the last thing they want to do right now is take familiar portions of the game and just up and change them to a completely drastically different system without knowing for sure that a majority of the player base is going to be behind them on it, because certainly Age of Shadows took a huge chunk, whether anyone wants to admit it or not, a huge chunk of the player base got up and left after the Age of Shadows. And I think they're sort of considering what it is that they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And like things like the item properties, I think it was Arjuna that had said that in any changes that they plan on making, they really have to make sure that they're not killing anything that's existing. If they were to make a change that suddenly everything that's going to have the same thing happen that you had happen when they launched the Age of Shadows, people are going to be fed up with having to relearn every aspect of the game all at once, and they'll have more people leave. So, I don't know. I mean, I think the problem that they're having is the same problem all of us are having. There aren't any easy answers, and they have to be very careful about what they do, because, clearly they don't want to drive more people away.
Right. And I think what it really is going to come down to at the end of the day, they're going to have to upset somebody at the end of the day, and but really, what really aggravates me the most, it's kind of like this political phrase that really upsets me with our president, and that political phrase is staying the course. Whether it's good or bad, we're going to stay the course, right? And so, that's the thing, and I just don't agree with staying the course if it's not working, and that's what I see with the developers. I see the developers, they get in a situation where they screwed up on something, but they stay the course, because they rather stay the course rather than come out and say, hey, we screwed up on this, or hey, we screwed up on this, we're going to fix it, right? Or hey, things ain't going right, we're going to fix it. All I see is, let's get away as far as we can, let's throw some more content in there, maybe y'all will forget about it with all this new content, and hopefully you guys won't remember it. Because, look at, you don't hear anybody talk about thieves anymore. You don't hear people talk about item identification. You don't hear people talk about arms lore. You don't hear people talk about a lot of these issues that are going in the game, are still issues to this day. And it's because, I think people over time that used to play these professions and everything, whether it be a crafter or, arms lore or item identifier or whatever you want to call it, people just don't use them anymore. So, there's no reason. People moved away from those skills, and there's no reason to think about it anymore. And that's what I'm starting to see with crafting, is people's getting away from crafting. People ain't even really thinking about crafting anymore. They're thinking about, oh, what's the next artifact? Or, oh, what's the next big monster that I'm going to go out and slay? And if that's all the game's going to be about from day in, day out, I mean, what exciting things are there? I mean, and I guess at the end of the day, I want to know, are you guys going to be happy with new craftables? Are you guys going to be happy with dwarves? Should it be dwarves? I mean, because I know a lot of people were upset with the introduction of elves because they thought the elves was just too radical, didn't fit in with the game, stuff like that. Like they were going after World of Warcraft and getting some ideas from World of Warcraft by introducing elves, because everybody loves elves, right? Exactly. So I'm kind of wondering what your thoughts on that are. Do you like dwarves or do you not? Simple. Lord Chaos, go ahead.
There we go. To the question about dwarves, no. All this new races, if they're going to introduce anything, at least do something that is kind of fun and really. Actually, gargoyles would be perfect, since they could introduce more virtue stuff and more things that actually tie in with the past of Ultima, which would really make the game have more depth, which it needs. And about the PvP versus PvM and all that, here's something that is going to fix it. And Mr. Tact, if you're listening, probably not, but I'm going to say it anyway. Here is what you need to do. Separate PvM from PvP. They need to stop this always trying to cut down one or the other to try and fix it, because it's not working. It is never going to work the way you always made. It's not going to work. And then once they've done that, they need to make a more simpler system for PvP that doesn't require 100 million gold suit simply to play. It needs to be simplified a lot more, and that would actually satisfy all those people that hate this item-based game, because it would move the focus away from the items and more on the skill and working together and stuff like that. And then what they need to do is that they need to go out. They've learned a lot from World of Warcraft, but I'm going to say go out and learn from other PvP-oriented games. Hell, take Lineage 2 or anything like that, and learn it that you can have a lot more content for PvP that's than just having random people fight each other. More contestable areas, like faction wars, just on a larger scale. Give a reason for crafters and resource gatherers to be in Felucca, to be part of that fighting and be part of that control over an area. And through that, you would all of a sudden make thieves viable again. They would be able to target other players. They would be able to do sabotage or steal from crafters and opposite fighters and stuff like that. And you could make PvP very much fun with that. And this would be in a way that you wouldn't upset how the game is now. You wouldn't ruin how the game is. You wouldn't ruin the experience for PvM by doing that. And it might actually, by PvMers or Tramelites or whatever you call it, not feeling so aggressive towards PvP, they might feel a lot more inclined to go and try it themselves. They might go over, hey, I'll don this, let's just call it faction armor or something, or done some suit which I go over there and craft myself and try and be part of it and go out and have some damn fun, kill some people, control some areas, help people in guilds and clans or stuff like that.
Yeah, very good points that you bring up there. And I don't necessarily agree with the idea which you just proposed. Like I said, we can sit here and propose ideas all day long, but at the end of the day, I don't think anybody's going to agree with any idea, with any proposed ideal, and that's ultimately going to probably have to come down to developers creating that ideal, because that's what they get paid for, right? But anyways, yeah, if it was just me, I'd just do away with item properties altogether. Then that way you have your item identification back, you have your arms lower, Get rid of item insurance, because then you would have your thieves back. Reverse all that. Get your thieves back. Put them back in the game. Give them something to do. Give them the ability to steal from players. And it's not going to be easy to do. That's the hard thing, you know. It's not going to be anything that people are going to rejoice over. It's not going to be anything that people say, yeah, let's do it, you know. It's going to be people out there saying, no, we don't want to do it. We've been playing like this for the last 2 years with item insurance in there, and I shouldn't have to give up my items. By God, I'm going to stick with my items, and I'm going to keep my item insurance, and I'm going to keep my, lower reagent costs, and to hell with Ultima Online, and hell with everybody else, that want to take them away. And, that's how people are nowadays, and that's really how people are, because if it interferes with their play style or how they're playing the game, they see it as a perceived threat. So, I don't know if I made myself, known by that or made a point by that. I hope I did. And, but, I can't see of any other possible solutions out there that really rectify all the problems that we have in the game today. Unless you do something radical like that, which is do away with the item properties and the item insurance. All the systems and features in which they added in, which compromised another system or feature, should be removed. That's because, in essence, otherwise you need to pretty much explain how you're going to bring back thieves, how you're going to bring back item identification, how you're going to bring back some of these old professions that no longer exist. Stuff like that. But anyways, Radiant, go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you. I was just going to say that so far as item properties go, I don't think necessarily that getting rid of them is going to help anything, and realistically, we're talking about a game that underwent a major transformation after the Age of Shadows, and like it or not, we're sort of at that point today where we're created a much more enriching game. Prior to the Age of Shadows, there were, basically five different weapon types and 5 different armor types, and everything else was just sort of the same. Your Chris was faster than your longsword, and everyone felt that plate protected you better than ringmail or leather armor, but you didn't really have a lot of variety as to what was going on out there. Now, I think there's certainly room for them to improve, first off, how those items interact with each other and make it so that it makes a little more sense so far as, adding a little more diversity where plate armor would protect you more from maybe physical attacks and things like that. But I think that's more of a, revamp of what we're looking at today without necessarily yanking it all out and starting from scratch. Suggestions about what we can do to reinvigorate thieves. Nothing that they're going to do so far as item properties is going to have any effect at all on anyone in Trammel, because the thing that you're looking at is, even without item insurance, a player won't be able to run up to another player in Trammel and steal from them, and really shouldn't be able to, because when you look at the reverse side of that, there's no way for that player to react to somebody that has just stolen from them. So what was from mining, from the number of feathers that are picked from a bird, number of logs off of a tree, things like that. So they've given reason for resource gatherers to go to Feluca, and honestly, that's my favorite place to pick things up because it takes, half as long to do it. But, a lot of people in Trammel are under this impression that the minute you step foot into Feluca, an alarm goes off warning all the Reds that, there's a trammy in Sector 12, come kill him. But, really, things that could help fix PvP are more Feluca-based, and that really comes with getting interest into why should people be fighting other players? What rewards are there for doing it? You look at a game like World of Warcraft, and we've got a PvP system there where you get absolutely nothing other than honor points for the death of another player. Nobody in the World of Warcraft ever worries about an item of theirs disappearing on them unless they forget to repair once in a while. So there is never an issue of another player stealing something from you. There's never an issue of you losing gold to another player because they stole it from you, any of that. And yet, I'd say their PvP system is probably a lot more successful than Ultima Online's current PvP system because they've created good reasons to go out and fight. But even in World of Warcraft, you have people that are complaining about, whether it's a skill-based versus click-based. And, World of Warcraft is probably one of the biggest item-based games in the world. Their PvP is determined just as much by the items that they're wearing as the skill they have in clicking the buttons. So I don't know if there's an easy way to balance that in UO either. And, even if we went back and we took off all item properties and everyone's just fighting with a long sword in full plate armor, there will be always somebody standing there going, oh, well, you cheat because you've got a hacks program, or you cheat because you've got a faster connection than me. So no matter what's done, there will always be complaints on the PvP system and, in fact, the game in general. But I think the answer to fixing Ultima Online's PvP is more looking at providing good reasons to go to Feluca and maybe rewards for doing so and things like that. So I think that's where they should be looking.
Really, I think what they should be looking, and just kind of touch on what you said, Radian, is my whole point is this, is how do we get back to getting players that used to play the game back into the game, and why did they quit the game in the first place? And as you mentioned earlier, a lot of players quit the game because of Ages of Shadow. How do we get these players that quit because of Ages of Shadow back into the game? Because obviously they're not going to be playing under the system of Ages of Shadow. And for somebody, who's on edge, thinking about quitting, because they don't like item properties either, and they don't see any really change of course or anything, but instead see, basically a development team staying the course, like I like to say. Staying the course is, it's just like, what's going to change? I mean, how do you plan to get these people back in the game to where there's people running all about, whether it be the West Bank or the Lucia Bank or whatever have you, that you actually see people over there rather than, maybe just seeing everybody at the West Bank or Luna. How do you get more players to coming into this game? Because obviously, there's a lot of speculation and a lot of belief by the players who still play to this day that the game has really diminished in terms of number of players that play the game today. So how do we cater and appeal to those who no longer play? How do we cater to those who advocate for a pre-AOS or a pre-UOR shard? How do we strike some kind of middle ground? How do we, kind of reach some kind of compromise, with those folks? I think that's where we really need to be asking ourselves, because there's this whole player base out here that doesn't like the system which the game is currently under, that would like to have some other kind of system which they could play under, So, I mean, I don't know if that would be good for EA, or if you guys would subscribe to that idea, or maybe making some kind of compromise. Or, just saying, screw them, they don't play the game, so why should I worry about them, I mean, that's what we have to really ask ourselves. Do we care whether these people are playing the game or not? Or do we want to see them come back and start playing the game again? Because, I mean, I'm not sure if any of you guys here have had friends who quit the game because they didn't like certain features of the game. Now, if for some odd reason you could see your friends come back to the game because, either some of these stupid features were removed from the game, would you not be happy with something like that? So, I mean, something to think about, that's where I'm trying to get at the end of the day. How can we get our friends, because, I've played this game 9 years. I've seen a lot of friends come and go over them 9 years, and I would like to see some of them friends return because item props got removed or something like that. But I'm not going to be able to possibly ever see those friends come back into Ultima Online. And UOKR, by many people's beliefs, is going to be a hit or miss. For many, it's going to be the last chance they give Ultima Online. Whether Ultima Online can impress them with UOKR. And, with the whole new graphics engine and stuff like that, I don't know if you guys feel kind of the same way about the game. Is UOKR going to be the hit or miss that determines the future of Ultima Online, whether it becomes a successful game or if it just crashes and burns? Arjuna, let's hear from you.
Thank you. Well, with regard to overhauling the game just to get people who quit with the Age of Shadows back, I don't really have mercy for people who left and didn't suffer and adapt like we did. We spent a couple of years, now 3 years, but let's say a couple of years suffering through a bad system in order to adapt. I'm not willing to undo that just to get people who quit. With regard to stealing, one of the things that was good about stealing before Age of Shadows was that there was actually an exact counter to stealing, which was tinkering. There was tinker-trapped boxes, which you could cast Magic Unlock after arming, and that would make you unsnoopable. So if 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 people could be thief-proof, literally unstealable except from disarmed thieves, then there was actually a protection from it. One of the things that Age of Shadows did was they took that away. There is actually, other than insurance, there is no real protection from stealing, unlike before Age of Shadows. So a fix to stealing has to also fix tinkering again. I want to recap some of the things that Lord Chaos was saying earlier. Is probably, it hits on one of the things that's important, which is that in group player versus player right now in Ultima Online, there is only reward for the people who get the kill shot. There is only reward for the people who sit there, and if their factions sit there at moon gates instead of defending. There's no reward right now for tinkering. There is no reward right now for the thief. There is no reward for the healers. Who aren't the ones with the template or a character or location that's doing the kill shot. Even the insurance and the silver goes to kill shots rather than to people who spend 10 hours, 12 hours doing support roles. So I would support any kind of system that rewards more than just the people who do the kill. Another thing that a lot of people, including I believe designers, overlook is that Feluca is more than unconsensual player versus player. One of its strengths, one of its best features is that you can have consensual player versus player without being gilded. You can have dueling. You can have tournaments. You can have things where people predefine rules and go up on a rooftop, and then they don't even have to be gilded, and they can sit there and they can fight. And that's something that you can't do in Trammel. And a lot of the changes that they do in Ultima Online are on trying to make unconsensual player versus player easier. They try to say, oh, well, you attacked someone in a house, now you're ejected from a house, forgetting that, part of Feluca is something, well, maybe someone wanted to attack in a house. Maybe they weren't house hiding. Maybe they were having a tournament. Maybe the person that they're trying to resurrect and can't because of beneficial acts is someone where they were having an honorable duel, which is as much a part of Feluca as unconsensual. It's wonderful that Feluca has unconsensual PvP, but it's a shame that they keep losing some of the strengths of it, which is consensual PvP among people who are not actually gilded and not actually warred with each other. And they have bugs which they need to bring up, like with regard to clearing access lists and things like that. Bugs that they probably don't care about because they only care about the unconsensual stuff and aren't as interested in supporting tournaments or things like that. But, okay. Thanks.
Yeah, see, that brings up a good point and everything. And one of the things I could never understand and never could quite accept is the fact, for example, I think there's For example, like if you ever go in the houses in Palooka and everything, you can no longer go into private houses. You know, if a house is private, you know, used to you could go in a private house regardless whether it was private or open to the public. Nowadays, you can't even go into a private house. Under the old system, you could go into a private house, but you was gray to the owner, meaning you could be attacked by the owner. Now you can't even go into private houses. And that takes away from the strengths of Palooka, like you said, Arjuna. And, you know, it's like, you know, why did you do this? You know, I could maybe understand a system like this in Trammel, but anytime you exclude and basically put in a system that says, well, guess what? We're going to respect your privacy and to hell with the players, you know? And we're going to keep players out of your house and keep players from even coming into your house. And I mean, there's not really much I can do to you in your house in Trammel. But guess what? If your house is private, I can't even go inside your property and even have a look around. Now, and that's for the sake of privacy for the players. You know, and I'm kind of, you know, very against any idea of any system that limits as to what I can do. You know, I mean, it's not like I go in your house and kill you in Trammel, you know, or something like that. So what's the whole point? You know, maybe I could steal something or take something away from you, but then again, you can ban me, you know, if you don't want me in your house. I mean, exactly what can I do to you in your house? Nothing. I mean, because you have all the options already. Same thing for Palooka, you know, so why do you take something that is optional to the player and force it on the players? You know, so. Arjuna, did you want to touch on that a little bit, or?
Well, thanks for asking. There's, I don't know if there's one thing you might not be aware of. Last week, at one of my houses, I have built an arena, and about 50 people came over, and we had a couple of events. And my arena is designed so that it's got double walls. You can't have people casting from outside. It's designed to have everything inside protected from everything outside. I did have a Red Guild helping protect the outside. There were several people outside trying to attack us while we held the event inside. But there was a bug where if someone has access to your house, you cannot revoke access. So you had mentioned that one of the things that you can do is ban someone. You actually can't do that now. You can't say that someone who's had access now, because they're killing everybody that you've got in there, can be banned. And I believe that part of where this bug came from is some of the stuff that they did with regard to trying to, I don't know, to help the guild wars or something like that. But they kind of mixed it all up so that you no longer have a balance between unconsensual and consensual player versus player. You actually have a system now where, you know, like you said, you can't get in if you don't have access, but if you have access, you can't remove access. And so, you know, I mean, yeah, people still have a lot of fun. Yeah, you have big group fights, you know. The people who were outside had a lot of fun protecting the people inside, and everybody inside who died didn't mind. I mean, you know, it's all part of the game, but at the same time, there are definitely problems with the system that it could be fixed. So, but thanks for the opportunity to recap on that.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I wasn't even aware of that, because, God, I haven't had somebody in my house in a very long time while I was there. Hell, I barely even go to my house anymore. I don't hang out at my house. I'm usually out in the world, like around Britain and Luna, you know, socializing with people. I'm more of a socializer. I like to get out there and meet people and say, hello, how you doing? You know, screw around with them and you know, cut up with them and stuff like that. You know, make them laugh and stuff. You know, act silly. You know, so on. And so, I mean, I just don't understand. And I just don't like systems. You know, I don't like it when the developers take privileges away from players, you know, in favor of a system, you know, that basically, you know, is a fix-all, you know, one thing does all. I don't like that. Lord, I think it was Lord Chaos. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think we've gone over quite a few subjects since I last got to talk. But first I'd like to say that removing item properties just isn't feasible in this game. It's not going to work. Neither is removing insurance in all of the game. Neither is trying to push all these ideas into Trammel and whatnot. It's not. If we are going to get old players back, it cannot be at the cost of the players that already is there, and that's what's going to happen. You need to make the game fun on a PvP aspect, and that's where the real colors of the PvPers are going to show. Where do your priorities lie? If your priorities is simply because you have a mad grudge against AOS and what happened back then yeah, you keep on hating against all the things that were introduced there. But someone who's truly interested in PvP and truly interested in all of this should be more into the saying, well, screw all that stuff. Screw all the things that happen in Trammel 1. We want a fun system. You'll make them viable again. Make a reason for people to be there. Make it so that you actually have some real fun there. Make it so that it's not 100 million gold suits that rules the world. No, make it so that the player that comes in there and participates in it can both feel rewarded and feeling like they can do something, feeling like their skill matters something. That's what should be the main focus. Not all this AOS, not all this pre-AOS, which nobody can ever agree on what's going to constitute pre-AOS. I mean, we've had a lot of threads on that on Stratix, and they've all been like, nobody could agree on it. So really, it's better to say, well, that's in the past. Look forward, move forward, figure out some really great ideas on how to revitalize PvP and how to make it so that the effects of Trammel doesn't have such a great effect on Felucca, just like Felucca doesn't have a great effect on Trammel. That should go both ways. Now, Felucca shouldn't be as Trammelized as it is now, and Trammel shouldn't be Feluccalized, in a sense. And then you make it fun for people to participate in both, instead of always warring each other. That's what I really would like to see.
Yeah, one thing I didn't know until a few days ago that I didn't realize is that now reds on production charts, and this is something I thought was really only something that you would see on Siege Perilous, but apparently reds can now go into the reds on production charts can now go into cities and not be guard whacked. And back in, and that's since changed, and I was like, when did this change? It's been so long since I've been in Felucca, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Something that used to be only seen on Siege is now on production shards. So really, in a lot of ways, I think that really hurts Siege Perilous, given the fact that reds, red players, murderers, can go into player run, I keep saying player run, but go into cities and actually not get guard whacked, whereas under the old system, the only place a red could go and not get guard whacked in a city was Buccaneer's Den. So now, the developers have all of a sudden gotten up once again, said, well, to hell with that rule, you can go anywhere, just as long as you don't attack anybody in town, Just as long as you don't attack anybody in town, you can go to any city out there. I'm sorry, I do not agree with the idea, because for a very long time, it was that you had to go Buccaneer's Den. And now you can no longer go Buccaneer's Den, or nobody ever goes Buccaneer's Den, because now all the reds are around, they're around, Britain and all that. Once again, Ultima Online lore, or thrown out, in favor of some system, for why, I don't know, to allow the reds to go into, cities and not even have to worry about getting guard whacked anymore. I don't know. It's stuff like that. It just doesn't make no sense at all why they would take a system that's been in the game for so many years and then radically change it to, for what reason, I don't know. Radian, go ahead.
Thank you. The Reds going in town, honestly, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be allowed to go in town. I mean, realistically speaking, Feluca is no longer this comfortable place where everybody lives. It's literally only a small percentage of the population that lives there, and probably an even smaller portion of the population that actively plays there. I mean, you can walk around on Great Lakes and find places to drop 15 by 15 houses readily. So, it's not like we've got a population issue there at all. So far as Reds being able to go in town, I think it just became a logical extension of the fact that really there's nobody there. And why shouldn't they be able to go in town when, Lord British, as far as the lore goes, got up and walked away from Feluca and took everybody to Trammell for their safety and protection. But I think really, so far as Feluca goes, the thing so far as the issues with people being able to walk into somebody else's house, I don't necessarily agree that just because it's Feluca, you should just be able to walk into someone's house and do whatever you want in there, whether it's private or public. Yes, in the past you were able to, attack them just because they were gray when they walked in the house, but the reason a lot of the systems came to play is that, with the advent of things like stealth, and, people could walk in and hide in your house and wait for you to come home, kill you, and take all your stuff. Now, yes, I agree, Feluca is a more frontier-like place where, maybe that's a risk you're taking when you go to Feluca, but the aspect of just walking into your house, which should be your private area in the game, if that's what you so choose to make it, I don't think a lot of people are all that excited about being killed in their own house just when they show up from their adventuring or whatever and lose everything. Somebody who just happened to be hiding inside the door waiting for them. And believe me, that happens a lot, or happened a lot more than people would like to remember. But I still think that the problem with Feluca is going to be more of an issue. Someone had said something about the skills, moving PvP back to more skill-based than item-based. But then, what definition of skill are we talking about? Because I remember back in the old days, if you used potions, you weren't considered to be a good PvPer. If you used certain weapons, you weren't considered to be good. If you're using band-aids to heal yourself, well, why should you need to heal? You're not that good of a PvP. Why are you running around? Why aren't you just standing there, taking the hit and dying? Realistically, PvP in UO has always had, people complaining about this or that aspect of it. To me, the most important thing about the difference between PvP and PvM is that they should be transitionless. You should not need to learn a different formula for the game just because you're PvPing as opposed to PvMing. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't have to have greater skill to survive at PvP, figuring out what spells to cast when or what weapons to wear or things like that. But I don't think it's going to be something where you should have to learn, okay, you're fighting a monster, these rules apply, you're fighting a player, these rules apply. Because to me that just makes it more complex. And the real problem, we're talking about getting people more interested in it. Realistically speaking, nothing that they're going to do to the game, and realistically speaking, even if they went and said, okay, you know what, we're going to release a pre-UOT2A shard. It's going to be a production shard from the day all online went live of the game. Is drawing people back reasons to be there. People, well, yeah, I agree that Age of Shadows hurt the game a lot. But I think drastically over the past 9 years, the game's just lost players simply because the game's 9 years old. And, up until Kingdom Reborn, there's not been one graphical update to the game worth speaking of. EverQuest, within a couple of years of the game being out, upgraded their graphics engine and, kept moving the game along with modern technology. That hasn't happened with UO, and while I know graphics don't make the game entirely, when you see the game sitting on the shelf next to everything else that's out there, you pick up all... not knowing because of the way it looks. So, there's a lot of things that need to be combated to get more players into the game, but to get players interested in Feluca, it's going to have to be giving reasons to go there, and I don't think coming up with artificial rule sets is going to be the one to do it, because, again, I think if you have to relearn the game, most of the people that will be coming to Feluca will be current Trammel players, and if they have to relearn the game to go and play in Feluca, they're going to do exactly what they're doing right now, which is not go. So I think the biggest advent to fixing PvP and to fixing Feluca will be to give reasons for the Trammel player to go to Feluca.
Yeah. Well, I know if you go to Feluca, you're going to have to definitely count up them stats on your weapons and properties and all that, whereas if in Trammel, you really don't even have to pay too much attention to all that, I don't think, because you ain't got to go up against another player. You're going up against artificial intelligence. And why people enjoy fighting and playing against artificial intelligence more so than a real-life player is beyond me in a lot of cases. But look at the time. It's already 6 p.m. over here in Central Texas, or Central Time, should I say, in Texas. And it is 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to go ahead and start wrapping this up. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and give you all an opportunity to say goodbye and all your farewell wishes out to the people out there listening. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So with that said, Arjuna, go ahead and...
Well, as always, it was a pleasure talking to all of you. I did not expect us to agree on everything, but I think that, there was enough overlapping of everything that, the discussion was a great pleasure, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming and being here. And also, I just want to point out that anybody out there that does not have their 9th anniversary codes yet, they're kind of like, well, where do I go get it? Or like wondering just exactly, they just don't want to wait for it, or they're thinking about buying it, haven't quite committed to buying it yet, or whatever else. Go to UOCodes.com and purchase your game codes from there. You just get the code only by email. You don't actually get the box, so let me point that out right now. But if you go to UOCodes.com and actually purchase it, every purchase you make from UOCodes.com actually helps the radio station out here at UORadio. So keep that in mind whenever UOKR comes out. You can purchase your game codes from there. You'll be able to purchase any releases of Ultima Online from there. So any 90 game time codes, all that good stuff, you can buy it from there. So not only do we sell Ultima Online codes, but we also sell game codes for other online games as well. You'll get your, if you're a first-time buyer, you'll get a phone call confirming your order within 15 to 20 minutes of your first purchase. And if you are a existing customer who's just coming back to purchase again, well, then you will just simply get an email with it within 5 minutes of the purchase. So, so with that said, we're going to go to Lord Chaos. Go ahead, Lord Chaos.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank everybody for listening to all our little ramblings on here. And to the whole Feluca versus Trammel, all I gotta say is gobble gobble.
Gobble gobble, that is right, because Thanksgiving is coming right up. We are not too far from gobble gobble. We're going to be eating lots of turkey. I'm glad you thought about that. You probably didn't even know that Thanksgiving was coming up, but in case you did, gobble gobble. Radian, let's hear from you. Radian, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Just wanted to say thanks, Viceroy, for having me again, and Arjuna and Lord Chaos. It was a lot of fun talking with you again, and certainly look forward to doing this again in the near future. And I apologize for this, but I've been told that if I don't say this, that somebody's going to beat me over the head with a 2x4. So I really have to say right now, silver rules, because it's really important to say. So thank you much.
Yes, silver vanquishing rules. Yes, oath system. All right, so that's going to go ahead and conclude episode number 45 right here on November 4th, 2006. This is Viceroy from UORadio, and we are going to be having a talk show, not a talk show, but a guild interview tomorrow with the Guardians of Valhalla from Great Lakes. So I'm not sure if Radiant knows them, but they'll definitely be here at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and that will be a 2-hour interview from 5 p.m. Eastern to 7 p.m. Eastern, and that is, I think, let me do the math right, 2 p.m. Pacific time to 4 p.m. Pacific for all you people out on the West Coast. So till then, we'll see you next week. Take care, goodbye, and God bless, and we'll see you next week. Adios.